I believe that we have better ideas. But I also believe that good ideas don't matter if people don't hear them. And one of the issues that Democrats have to be clear on is that given population distribution across the country, we have to compete everywhere. We have to show up everywhere.
President Obama today weighing in on an age-old fight within the Democratic Party about how to win back the vote from the Republican Party, particularly after you've lost a lot of it. It was not that long ago that one Democratic leader tried to do that during the Democratic presidential primary when he shocked pretty much everybody by churning out 4,500 folks for a rally in the very, very red state of Louisiana.
Some people told me that Louisiana was a conservative state. Guess not. I think my colleagues in the Democratic Party have made a very, very serious mistake. And that is they have kind of written off half of America, including Louisiana.
That was Bernie Sanders early on in the Democratic primary. That was July 2015. The following spring 2016, after Hillary Clinton had beaten Senator Sanders not just in Louisiana, but across the South, Senator Sanders' defense of Democrats in the South started to wane a little bit.
You know, we started off this campaign having to run in the Deep South.
Trust me, I know about running in the Deep South. Not an easy thing to do. You don't...
and we didn't do all that well.
Yeah,
it's
I understand. It's a different kind of running.
It's a conservative part of our country. There are people who say, why does Iowa go first? Why does New Hampshire go first?
Yeah.
But I think that having so many southern states go first kind of distorts reality as well.
Look, let me acknowledge what is absolutely true. Secretary Clinton cleaned our clock in the Deep South, no question about it. We got murdered there. That is the most conservative part of this great country. That's the fact.
We got murdered in the Southern Democratic primaries because that's the most conservative part of this country. Democratic votes in southern states distort reality. When Bernie Sanders started making those arguments about the Democratic primary, it caused some Democratic Party leaders in the South to say, hold on, don't blame us, essentially. A number of Democratic Party chairs from southern states wrote a fairly scathing letter in which they basically criticized Senator Sanders, but also anybody in the party who wouldn't take Democratic votes in the South seriously. Quote, you argue that the South is the most conservative part of America, implying states that traditionally vote Republican in a general election are not worth contesting in a Democratic primary. In this year's primaries in the southern states of South Carolina, Georgia, Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, and North Carolina, African Americans represented between 31 and 71% of the Democratic electorate. To dismiss the importance of this region is to minimize the importance of the voices of a core constituency for our party. We must continue winning states like Virginia and North Carolina, and we can't write off states like Tennessee and Georgia. Even Texas could turn blue in less than a generation. And beyond the presidential race, there are important statewide and other federal races happening every cycle. Boosting Democrats' chances in those seats is vital to enacting a progressive agenda at the local level. This can only happen if we show up, speak to the region's needs, and compete for every vote, even in the face of long odds. That's how change really happens. Now, to be clear, this letter from the Southern Democratic chairs, it was written in support of Hillary Clinton during the primary. But the closing line here seems particularly applicable today for the Democratic Party, given what it's facing right now. Quote, to be the leader of the party, you have to be with Democrats in all states as well. That includes the ones you won, and yes, even the ones you lose. Democratic Party's in dire straits right now. Whatever plan the party had before, it did not work for holding the White House, for gaining the Senate, let alone for making any considerable progress in the House. Democrats are in bad shape after this election, and that's even more true down ballot in the states. But is this kind of thinking put forth back in April by the Southern Democrats, focusing on the grassroots, progressive work at the local level to build up the Democratic base from the ground up, even in traditionally Republican regions, does that make the most sense for the party as a whole moving forward? One of the state party leaders who signed that letter back in April, that, I think, landmark letter, is named Jamie Harrison. Jamie Harrison is the chairman of the South Carolina Democratic Party. He's a bit of an outsider in some ways, by no means a nationally known figure at this point. He's not an elected official, nor does he represent a traditionally Democratic state in this country. But his name is now one of the ones that is being discussed as the possible next chair of the National Democratic Party. The South Carolina Democratic Party chairman, is he the kind of unifying figure that party needs right now? Does he have the stomach? Does he have the wherewithal to take on this hugely important role right now at this very difficult time? Let's ask him. Joining us now, Chairman Harrison. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, this is great.
Are the rumors true? Are you throwing your hat in? Do you want to be considered as Democratic Party chairman?
Count me in. I'm throwing my hat in, Rachel.
Why?
Listen, I love this party. Everything I am is because of this party. I grew up in rural South Carolina, a small town in Orangeburg, teen mom, who had to stop school to have me and went back to school.
Your mom was 15 when she had you?
Yeah, she was 15 years old. And so we've been fighting for everything we have. And I've been fighting for a long time. And the one thing that I see that we have to fight for is for this Democratic Party. My grandparents, who really were instrumental in helping raise me, my grandfather had a 4th grade education, my grandmother had an 8th grade education, so I was the first in my family to go to college. Went to Yale, ended up at Georgetown Law School, went to work on Capitol Hill. I taught high school. I worked at a nonprofit that helped low-income kids get into high school. So every step of the way, I had people telling me, you can't do this. You can't do this. And even lately, in terms of the discussion of whether or not I run for chair, I've had people say, well, you can't do this. Some people have told me, you have to stand down. And people don't understand, when you start from nothing and you work and you pour yourself into to building yourself up to be successful, to live the American dream, you're not going to have anybody stand in your way and say that you can't do it.
When you mentioned your grandparents there, with 4th grade education, 8th grade education, they had this instrumental role in raising you because of this upbringing that you had. If you want to be the Democratic Party chairman, think about talking to your grandparents about what the Democratic Party can offer in South Carolina, right? There's one member of Congress who's a Democrat from South Carolina, Jim Clyburn, who you worked for as a staffer. In red states in this country, what does the Democratic Party have to offer other than some distant hope that maybe it won't be a red state again in the future? What can you say to them? Well,
listen, one of the things that we've been trying to do in South Carolina, we started, when I became chair, this initiative called South Carolina Democrats Care. Because just as you said, we've only had one member of Congress. We don't control the governorship. We don't have any control of the legislative bodies. And so our idea is to go back into those communities, seeing what the needs are, listening to the people, letting them know that they matter and they're important. And we go into those communities to address some of their needs. So some of my county parties, Sumter County is one of them, they put on a school supplies drive. And they go every August to make sure that the poor families who can't afford the clothes or the school supplies for their kids, that those things are provided. And they also work with the teachers who need reams of paper all throughout the year, who have to pay for it out of their own pockets. When we do that, when we're able to do those type of things, put on housing workshops or helping people write their resumes, that's when people say, oh my God, the Democratic Party has helped me do A, B, and C. It doesn't, we spend millions and millions of dollars on TV, but those are things that we can do for free. And it has so much more impact on the lives of people. We have to start listening to people again, particularly the people in rural communities. Everybody in this past year, this past 2 years, it was about people feeling as if they don't matter. African Americans, and that's why you had Black Lives Matter, because they feel like their lives don't matter to law enforcement. Young people feel like their lives don't matter. Even the Bernie supporters felt like their voices did not matter to the Democratic Party. And so what we have to do now is figure out how do we start listening to people again, and how do we move from a political organization to a community organization.
South Carolina Democratic Party Chairman Jamie Harrison, will you stay with me? I have one other thing that I want to ask you about after the break. Jamie Harrison is making the announcement tonight that he will run for chair of the Democratic National Committee. He'll be right back with us right after the break. Stay with us. We're back with Jamie Harrison, who's the chairman of the South Carolina Democratic Party tonight. He's throwing his hat in the ring in the contest to be chair of the Democratic Party. Jamie, I have to ask you, you volunteer as chair of the South Carolina Party. You also work as a lobbyist with the Podesta Group in Washington. Would you be willing to give up that role as DNC chairman?
Well, I am taking a leave right now, unpaid leave. My wife is not happy about that, but unpaid leave. And it's partly, you know, and people get, you know, they criticize lobbyists all the time. And what I tell people is that is how I take care of my family. I pay my grandmother's mortgage. I have $160,000 of student loan debt. And when you're a poor kid who grows up and you're able to be successful to do this, I mean, you have to take care of
What about people's concerns, though, that your lobbying roster would be the special interests who you'd serve as chair?
No, the special interests that I care about are people like my grandmother, people like my grandfather, because those are the people that I care about each and every day. That's why I went back home to South Carolina. I lived in Washington, D.C. for a long time, for 12 years, working on the Hill and doing work with the Podesta Group. But I went back to South Carolina to volunteer because I needed to improve the place that is home for me. And that's what I want to do for this country. I have a two-year-old at home, and I worked with Nikki Haley and Matt Moore and a lot of other people to take down the Confederate flag after the horrible incident at Mother Emanuel. Those are the types of things that are passionate for me, and that's what I want to work on, and that's why I'm throwing my head in the ring.
There's been a lot of debate as to where the Democratic Party should spend resources. During the primary, you talked to me about the need for Democrats to focus on turning red states purple and red states blue. Places like South Carolina, you said they're closer than you think. I remember you making that argument.
Right.
But after losing Wisconsin, after losing Pennsylvania in a presidential race, can the Democratic Party afford that?
No, we have to. I mean, we have to go into a 50-state strategy plus. Adding on, Howard Dean was so great in that. Maynard Jackson thought about it even before Howard Dean, and it was so important to do that. But we have to ramp that up and make sure that we're investing in all our state parties, and we're building the next bench of Democratic talent.
Jamie Harrison, chairman of South Carolina Democratic Party. I told you somebody new was getting in as of tonight. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you
you
so
being
much.
here to
Thank
have
you
this
for letting me
discussion.
be here.
All right, we'll be right back. Stay with us.